In 1945, my father's father purchased a property for $1,000 in an all-white neighborhood called Highland Manor in Shelbyville, Kentucky. $1,000 was a lot of money in post-war Kentucky, particularly for my grandfather, who was the sole physician to the black community of this small town, some 30 miles outside of Louisville, where he was often paid in corn, vegetables, hogs, sweet potato pies, and so forth. The problem with my grandfather's new property was that due to a restrictive covenant on the deed, he was technically not allowed to live on the land that he had just purchased. But he bought it knowing that, but did not meet the seller intentionally in order to ensure the sale would go through. He had to hide his race to get what he wanted for the benefit of his family, something that all Americans want and deserve. When the white seller found out he had sold his property in an all-white neighborhood to a black man, he was shocked and upset. He tried to buy the property back from my grandfather, but my grandfather refused. You see, what my grandfather did in 1945 was technically illegal, but the statute that allowed for racist so-called covenants in real estate was fundamentally unethical. And to quote Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., any law that uplifts human personality is just. Any law that degrades human personality is unjust. All segregation statutes are unjust because segregation distorts the soul and damages the personality. It gives the segregated a false sense of inferiority. Ultimately, this matter went to court. And years later, my family received a favorable ruling with the help of their attorney, Spotwoods Robinson III, who had become the first black judge appointed to the U.S. Court of Appeals by then-President Lyndon Johnson. That attorney was referred to my family by Thurgood Marshall, who was at the time an attorney with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. But you see, this bill is important because a government elected by the people, for the people, cannot function from a moral foundation that is willfully ignorant of its past misdeeds, whose vestiges infect current policies, practices, and resource allocations. Institutional amnesia, or worse, collective apathy or denial of systemic bigotry, in fact, validates and inspires further bigotry and disinformation around why racial disparities endure. Some elected officials and their minions want to ban even references to some of our nation's most infamous atrocities and structural failings. They want to whitewash history while pledging to stand for liberty and justice for all. The good gentleman from Dauphin County has worked assiduously and in good faith in a bipartisan manner to formally end an ugly, protracted era in our Commonwealth and our nation, because he understands that words matter. Progress matters, however subtle it may be. His bill doesn't seek to erase history. His legislation actively unfetters our state from racist legal practices that led to the greatest single factor fueling the staggering racial wealth imbalance we suffer from today: homeownership in intentionally racially segregated neighborhoods across our Commonwealth. I applaud my colleagues' championing of this issue, for without such efforts, we affirm past injustices and prevailing myths about meritocracy and hard work with our institutional silence. We cannot change the past, but we can learn from history that we must continually co-author, collaboratively, and in good faith to embrace the complexities, contributions, and consequences of all who came before us.